Imagine standing in a valley between Rome's 7 hills on a summer morning in the year 80 AD. The air hums with anticipation. 50,000 voices rise like thunder as the greatest architectural marvel the world has ever seen opens its gates for the first time. The Colosseum gleaming, pristine, adorned with marble statues and golden shields, stands as a testament to imperial power, engineering genius, and the Roman spirit. Now imagine that same structure nearly 2,000 years later, broken, weathered, stripped of its glory, yet somehow more magnificent in its survival. This is the story of transformation, of how time reshapes even the mightiest monuments, and how the Colosseum's journey from splendor to ruin tells us everything about the rise and fall of civilizations. Before the Colosseum existed, there was a lake. An artificial lake, to be precise, built by the mad Emperor Nero for his sprawling golden house at palace so vast it consumed a third of Rome itself. Nero believed he was a god, and gods needed appropriate residences. But when Nero died in disgrace in 68 AD, his successor Vespasian faced a city that despised the memory of tyranny. The new emperor understood something profound about power. To make people forget a tyrant, you must give them something magnificent in return. So Vespasian drained Nero's lake and began construction of an amphitheater that would dwarf all others. He would give Rome back to the Romans, transforming a symbol of one man's excess into a monument of public spectacle. Construction began in 72 AD, employing tens of thousands of workers, including Jewish slaves captured after the siege of Jerusalem. Stone by stone, arch by arch, they built what would become the Flavian Amphitheater, though history would remember it by another name. The Colosseum that rose from that drained lakebed was a masterpiece of engineering and aesthetics. Picture it in its original glory. 4 stories of travertine limestone rising 157 feet into the Roman sky, each level adorned with different architectural orders. Doric columns at ground level, Ionic on the second, Corinthian on the third. The 4th level, added later, featured Corinthian pilasters and small windows. Between each arch on the upper levels stood statues of gods and heroes, their marble forms catching the Mediterranean sunlight. The exterior was clad with gleaming travertine blocks, held together not by mortar, but by thousands of ironclads iron that would later prove the building as vulnerability. Bronze shields decorated the attic story, reflecting light like mirrors. At the very top, sailors from the Roman fleet operated a massive retractable awning called the velarium, a canvas roof system supported by 240 wooden masts that could shade spectators from the brutal summer sun. This wasn't just a building. It was a statement carved in stone that declared Rome's dominion over the world. Step inside the Colosseum on that inaugural day in 80 AD, and your senses would be overwhelmed. The arena floor, covered in sand to absorb blood, stretched 287 feet long and 180 feet wide. But what you couldn't see was perhaps more impressive. Beneath that sand lay the hypogeum, a 2-level subterranean network of tunnels and chambers where gladiators, wild beasts, and elaborate stage machinery waited in darkness. Engineers had designed an ingenious system of ramps, pulleys, and trapdoors that could raise animals and scenery into the arena as if by magic. Lions, bears, elephants, leopards, and exotic creatures from every corner of the empire prowled in cages below, their roars muffled by the roar of the crowd above. Gladiators, some slaves, some freedmen seeking glory, some condemned criminals, prepared themselves for combat in cramped cells, their fates about to be decided by skill, luck, and the emperor's thumb. The social architecture of the Colosseum revealed everything about Roman hierarchy. The emperor and senators sat in the best seats at arena level on marble benches with cushions. The Vestal Virgins, priestesses who maintained Rome's sacred flame, had their own special section. Knights and wealthy citizens occupied the second tier. Common Roman citizens filled the upper levels, while at the very top, standing room only, were women and the poor, so far from the action they could barely see the blood on the sand. Every person knew their place, and the building itself enforced the social order simply by its design. This was Rome in miniature, a society obsessed with status, spectacle, and the demonstration of power. The games held within those walls were breathtaking and brutal in equal measure. Gladiatorial combat was only part of the entertainment. Mornings featured Venetian staged hunts where trained hunters called venatores fought exotic animals. Historians record that during the 100-day inaugural games, 9,000 animals died in the arena. Rhinoceroses, hippopotamuses, giraffes, crocodiles, creatures most Romans had never imagined, were paraded and slaughtered for entertainment. At midday came the executions. Criminals, prisoners of war, and Christians were killed in creative and horrific ways, sometimes forced to reenact mythological deaths. The afternoon belonged to the gladiators, the celebrities of their age. They entered through the gate of life, and if defeated, often left through the gate of death. Their names were chanted like modern athletes: Flamma, Spartacus, Spiculus. They fought in different styles: the heavily armored Murmillo with his large shield, the lightly armored Retiarius with his net and trident, the secutor designed specifically to counter the Retiarius. Every match was choreographed violence, but the blood was real, and death was always a possibility. Yet the Colosseum was more than blood sport. Engineers flooded the arena floor for mock naval battles, called naumachia, staging miniature wars between wooden ships as thousands watched in amazement. Elaborate theatrical productions transformed the space into forests, deserts, and mythical landscapes. The Romans were masters of spectacle, understanding that entertainment was the currency of political stability. Emperors who provided magnificent games were loved. Those who didn't faced resentment. Bread and circuses, the poet Juvenal would write, identifying the two things that kept the Roman masses content and distracted from the empire's deeper problems. For more than 4 centuries, the Colosseum remained the beating heart of Roman entertainment. Emperors added improvements and made repairs. Domitian completed the hypogeum and added the 4th level. Titus, Vespasian's son, who presided over the inaugural games, saw the building as his father's legacy. Under Trajan's rule in the early 2nd century, the games reached their peak of elaboration and expense. Philip the Arab celebrated Rome's 1000th anniversary in 248 AD, with spectacular games featuring 1,000 gladiators and hundreds of animals. But even as the spectacles continued, the empire was changing. Christianity was spreading, and with it came voices of opposition to the bloodshed. The old gods were losing their hold on Roman minds. The turning point came not with a single moment, but with a slow, inexorable tide of change. Emperor Constantine's conversion to Christianity in 312 AD marked the beginning of the end for gladiatorial combat, though the practice would continue for another century. In 404 AD, a monk named Telemachus jumped into the arena to stop a fight between gladiators and was stoned to death by the outraged crowd. His martyrdom, however, finally prompted Emperor Honorius to ban gladiatorial games forever. The hunts and executions continued for another century, but the Colosseum's golden age was over. The building fell into disuse, no longer the center of Roman life. And then came the earthquakes. Rome sits in a geologically active region, and the Colosseum would suffer greatly from the Earth's movements. A major earthquake in 847 AD caused significant damage. Another in 1349 AD proved catastrophic, causing the entire southern external facade to collapse into a massive heap of rubble. But natural disaster was only part of the story of the Colosseum's transformation. What truly stripped the monument of its glory was human intervention, or more precisely, human greed. For 1,000 years after the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD, the Colosseum became a quarry. The marble statues disappeared first, stolen or destroyed. Then came the bronze clamps Those thousands of iron and bronze fittings that held the travertine blocks together pried out one by one, leaving the distinctive holes that still scar the exterior today. The marble seats were torn up and carted away. Entire sections of the outer wall were dismantled, their stone repurposed for new buildings. The Barberini Palace, St. Peter's Basilica, the Palazzo Venezia, all contain stones stolen from the Colosseum. What the barbarians didn't destroy, the Barbarinis did, went the bitter saying in medieval Rome. Noble families fortified the remains, turning the ancient amphitheater into a fortress. Squatters moved into the underground chambers. Craftsmen set up workshops in the ruins. At various times, the arena floor became a cemetery, a site for religious processions, even a quarry for saltpeter production. Through the medieval period and into the Renaissance, the Colosseum stood as a haunting reminder of Rome's former glory and current decay. Pilgrims came to see where Christian martyrs had supposedly died, though historians now question whether Christians were actually executed. Significant numbers at the Colosseum specifically. Artists sketched the ruins, marveling at the engineering, even as nature reclaimed the structure. Vegetation took root in the crevices at one point. Botanists cataloged 684 different plant species growing in and around the ruins, seeds carried by wind and birds from across the Mediterranean. The Colosseum became a romantic ruin, a meditation on the impermanence of power and the passage of time. It wasn't until the 18th century that serious efforts to preserve what remained began. Pope Benedict XIV declared the Colosseum sacred to the memory of Christian martyrs, finally granting it protection from further dismantling. Restoration work began, stabilizing the structure and preventing further collapse. In the 19th and 20th centuries, archaeologists excavated the hypogeum, revealing the sophisticated machinery that had once powered the spectacles. Mussolini, obsessed with reviving Roman glory, ordered major restoration work in the 1930s, removing medieval and later additions to expose what he considered the pure ancient structure, a decision that itself changed the Colosseum's appearance significantly. Today, the Colosseum stands as the most visited monument in Italy, drawing more than 7 million people annually. What they see is both more and less than what ancient Romans knew. The marble is gone, the statues vanished, the bronze shields melted down centuries ago. 2/3 of the original structure has disappeared, yet the bones of the building remain incredibly powerful. The arches still soar, the scale still awes. The underground chambers, now exposed, reveal secrets ancient spectators never saw. Modern visitors can walk where gladiators walked, stand where emperors stood, and contemplate the same structure that has watched civilizations rise and fall for nearly 2 millennia. The transformation of the Colosseum from pristine marvel to weathered survivor teaches us something profound about time and memory. The ruin, in many ways, has become more meaningful than the original. When it was new, it was a tool of empire, a machine for entertainment and control. As a ruin, it has become something universal, a symbol of both human achievement and human transience. It reminds us that marble crumbles, that bronze tarnishes, that even the mightiest structures eventually yield to time. Yet it also testifies to the enduring power of human creativity. Nearly 2,000 years after its construction, the Colosseum still stands, still inspires, still draws millions who want to touch history and understand what it means to build something that outlasts its builders. The Colosseum's journey from new to old mirrors the journey of Rome itself, from republic to empire, from empire to ruin, from ruin to tourist attraction and World Heritage Site. Each age has seen the monument differently, used it differently, and found different meanings in its stones. The ancient Romans saw power and entertainment. Medieval Christians saw martyrdom and divine judgment against pagan excess. Renaissance artists saw beauty in decay. Modern tourists see history made tangible, a connection to a world both alien and strangely familiar. As we visualize the Colosseum through time, watching it rise pristine from Nero's drained. Lakes shine under the Roman sun, age through centuries of earthquakes and stone theft, and finally stabilize into the iconic ruin we know today we witness. More than architectural transformation, we witness the entire arc of Western civilization compressed into one structure. We see how empires believe their monuments will last forever, how time proves them wrong, and how, paradoxically, the ruins often endure longer in human memory than the civilization that built them ever did. The Colosseum stands today, not despite its transformation, but because of it, each crack a story, each missing stone a lesson, each ancient arch a bridge connecting us to ancestors we'll never meet, but whose ambitions, fears, and dreams echo in our own, reminding us that we, too, are building monuments that time will one day transform into something we cannot imagine.